charity never faileth. And that's talking about always being consistent ourselves and always being efficient ourselves, doing our part, doing what we need to do, and being effectual. It's actually talking about having a job to do and doing it. So we stick at the job until it's finished. And when we're finished, it's done right. And that's always the case. So people can actually depend on us. It relates back to it endureth all things. This idea, charity never faileth. And so we look at all this, and that's what this word charity is about. And we call it love because it is a form of love. And this, of course, perfectly describes Christ's love for us. We love him because he first loved us. In the manner that he first loved us, that's the manner he desires for us to love him back. And it is this love that we as his bride respond to and are to reflect. So we need to go over and over and over on this and work on it from day to day in our lives to be people who have this sort of love, not only to God and to Christ as our bridegroom, but also to those around us, particularly those close to us in our family and in our church, and to the world as well. The world should see this love reflected in our lives. And if they do, this will definitely have an effect not only on us, but on all those around us. This word agape in the Greek, it's different to the word love as it's commonly used in English. Now, it's not erotic love, that's sexual love. We talk about it as love. It's mostly passion, and it's mostly decadent. It's mostly evil, erotic love. But it is a form of love, right? And then we have brotherly love, person to person. And that, yeah, that's love. That's another form of it. Then we have friendship. That's just the general thing. We have people we are friends with who we can generally depend on to help us if we need them and all that. And then there's romantic love, a man and a woman. And that's a particular type of love that is God has blessed us with. And then there's blood love, the love of parents for children and relatives, etc. We say that blood's thicker than water, and that's the truth. There is something that binds us together when we're blood relations. But this word agape is a different word altogether, and this is why here in 1 Corinthians 13, Paul defines this word for us, and the translators correctly use the word charity to differentiate between all these other types of love, because this love is unique, it is special. It is Christ's love for us, and it's what he wants us to reflect back to him. And without something of this in our lives, we will never be transformed from the caterpillar to the butterfly. We will never be conformed to the image of Christ. Love is the basis of all else in our relationship to Christ, and the effect of it will govern all else. Right. It will immediately cause us to respond by separating ourselves from the world and all the world's claims on us. Under the Jewish system, the bride, as soon as she was betrothed, put on a veil to show that she was no longer available. And we are told, as Christ's bride, to separate ourselves from the world. That's what sanctification is, to be set apart from the world. We are set apart by Christ, he does it, and we are set apart for Christ. And so we have a part to play in this idea of sanctification. His setting apart of us is something that he does. That's a church-orientated doctrine. We just accept it by faith. Christ does it all. But we are set apart for Christ, and so he has something for us to do. And we have a responsibility to do what he wants of us. Now, this type of special responsive love, and I can't emphasize enough, it's a responsive love, will lead to joy, right? The fruit of the Spirit, love, joy. Now, in the Greek, this word is chara, and we need to understand that the fruit of the Spirit, they are not separate from each other. It's fruit, it's not fruits. So one comes out of the other, and they all come out of love, agape love. And so it's very important that we have a really good handle on what agape love actually is, not only in our head here, but in our heart here, so that we work at learning to practice agape love. Now, the bride in the Jewish system had joy, very much joy. Before she was betrothed, she would be unsure of herself in a sense. She would be wondering if anyone was going to want to marry her. Now remember, she's not going to be able to initiate it, and so she has to wait for some boy to come along and to propose to her. And when he does, well, that is super special. And so the first thing that gives her joy is the joy of being chosen, which made her so special. Until that time, no one had ever come to her and said, yes, I want you, I choose you, I love you. But now she's been chosen, and so that makes her so special. And she can put a veil on, and she can wear that veil out with great pride, not bad pride, good pride. And then the second thing is the joy of being secure in the love of the groom. In the Greek, this word joy has two major aspects. The first one is cheerfulness. You see the bride when she's been chosen and she's got a veil on, and you talk to her and she's happy, cheerful, very cheerful in fact, probably bubbling all over. And it's the outer show of the inner feeling, that's the cheerfulness. But underneath it there is what the Bible calls calm delight. Calm delight, I really like that. The inner feeling of complete security that often bubbles into cheerfulness. You see her and you say, why are you so happy? And she says, why wouldn't I be so happy? Right? Underneath there is that calm delight, the inner feeling of complete security that often bubbles into cheerfulness. This joy always leads to optimism and hope, and is the strength and driving power of the relationship. The coming of the bridegroom was looked forward to by the bride, and was her blessed hope and her constant joy. Her life was full of anticipation. We call it like delayed enjoyment. She would be looking ahead, looking forward, and every time she would think about it, her heart would leap, and she would be, underneath there would be that calm delight. And it's exactly the same for us. Nehemiah 8:10 says, the joy of the Lord is our strength. And that's the truth of the matter. As for the bride, under the Jewish system, this joy that a husband was going to come and take her for himself, that was her strength. And the joy of the Lord is our strength too. The bride also found that preparing herself to be with the groom became a joy to her. Now, at first, when she was betrothed, she would probably be all in a bit of a tears, a bit of a dither, and all excited but not really knowing where to go with it. But as she looked at the situation and said, "Well, I'm going to be married. Am I ready for it? No, I'm not. I must do this, I must do this, I must learn to cook, I must learn to sew, I must learn to iron, I must learn to wash." And then gradually she settles down and she says, "Now, I've got to learn to cook. Who can help me with that? Mum. I've got to learn to sew. Who can help me with that? Mum." And so she puts it all in place and she begins to work at it. And she finds that she's succeeding. She's learning to cook, she's learning to sew, she's learning to do all the things that she needs to be learning. And so preparing herself to be with the groom becomes a joy to her. She says, "Yes, he'll be happy with this. Yes, I think I'm getting there with that. And yes, he'll be happy with this. Yes, I'm getting there with that." And this joy is always tinged with anticipation of his coming, knowing that when he comes, what she's learned is what he will want. And so with us, our works are not to earn God's love, but they're a response to it. Just as the bride preparing herself for the groom was not to earn his love, she's already got it. He's already paid the bride price, but it's a response to it. So the love which prompts the groom to choose his bride is the basis not only for her responsive love, but also for the security that brings her joy, and this security is manifested in a life at peace. And the third of these fruit of the Spirit is peace. Love, which leads to joy, which leads to peace. Despite the groom delaying his coming, and despite the difficulties of preparing herself for his coming, the bride lives in the assurance of his love, proven by the bride price he has paid. She knows that he loves her. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come and been betrothed and paid the bride price. And she is filled with the inner peace that this assurance gives. She doesn't have to worry now whether somebody will choose her or not. And she doesn't have to worry that he'll change his mind, because he has not only come and declared his love to her and asked her to be his bride, he's also paid the bride price, and shows she's completely confident. And so all that waiting and wondering if somebody is ever going to want her suddenly is gone. And there's a calm assurance there. And there's an inner peace that this assurance gives. This word in the Greek is far more than just the absence of turmoil. It's far more than her saying, "Oh, thank goodness someone's chosen me now. What do I do now? Oh dear, I've got to do all these different things. Oh, I'll never make it." No, because she knows that she has been chosen and she knows that nothing will change that, there's no need anymore for her to be in turmoil. It covers the idea of rest and peace and quietness of spirit and calmness. It goes with joy, calm delight. Right? It's what Jesus was referring to in Matthew 11:28 when he said, "Come unto me, all ye that labour and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." It's peace, a peace in a heart. And this peace will make possible long suffering. Now these things, one leads to the next. In the Greek, this word is to do with patience and forbearance. It's talking about long suffering, putting up with things, long patience, not getting impatient, not getting angry, not, we call it champing at the bit, not trying to force things along, long forbearance and long temper. It's actually talking about not being grumpy. We know what grumpy is, don't we? There's a lot of grumpy people. And not being moody. The idea here is being on like an even keel, not being up and down all the time, not being moody, but determinedly and consistently maintaining an even plane. And it's talking about deliberately doing this, looking at yourself and saying, am I being grumpy? Now, if she's going to be grumpy, who's she going to be grumpy with? Her mother, her father, brothers and sisters, those people who are closest to her. And it's about not making life hard for those who are closest to her, but determinedly and consistently maintaining an even plane. She had to work at this. She's a young girl, and back in those days she could be anything from, say, 16 to maybe 20. So she's at that age and stage in life where she could be grumpy and she could be moody, but she's determinedly and consistently not. Under the Jewish system, the groom, in his preparation of the bridal chamber, generally took about a year. If he came for his bride too quickly, it was a sign that his preparation was not very elaborate and he didn't care too much. If, on the other hand, he waited too long, it would be thought that he didn't desire his bride and he wasn't really keen. So his love, which demanded the chamber be completely prepared, was in constant tension with his desire to be one with his bride. He delayed his coming, not because he didn't love her, but because of the extent of his love. And so the groom would be making his preparations and he'd go to his father and he'd say, I think I've got things right. And his father would come along and he'd say, oh no, I think you need to do this and that and something else. And right, so he'd get stuck into that and he'd say, well, how are we going? And his father would say, oh no, I don't think it's time yet. Perhaps you better do this or that. And there would be this constant tension to be one with his bride. And he delayed his coming not because he didn't love her, but because of the extent of his love. And so it is with Christ and us. He created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. How wonderful will be the bridal chamber he has been 2,000 years preparing. Now the bride, knowing all this, sets herself apart and patiently waited for him. The waiting actually became a joy in itself. She anticipated his coming, and so there was an excitement to it and a romance to it and an air of mystery to it. The waiting actually became a joy in itself. She counted each day as one more opportunity to prepare herself to be not his betrothed, but his wife. She lived in anticipation, knowing that the price had been paid and confident of his love, and with forbearance and patience she used her time to the best advantage.